Okay folks, buckle up. Today on the Mysteria Archive, we're heading back to Mars to take a close look at the mysterious face and the pyramids allegedly discovered there. Get ready for a wild ride. It's 1976. The Viking 1 spacecraft is gliding over the rust-red surface of Mars, snapping photos as it goes. One image stops the scientists in their tracks. A mesa, a flat-top mountain or hill, 2 miles long, casting a shadow in the shape of a perfectly symmetrical face. Eyes, nose, mouth, staring straight back into the camera. And this isn't just any hill. It's sitting on the middle of a region already packed with strange, pyramid-like formations, some rising like silent sentinels around the face. NASA says it's just a trick of the light, but to some, it's the most important photograph humanity has ever taken, a cosmic postcard from someone or something who wanted us to see it. Okay, so let's just be real. If I was a NASA scientist and saw that image, I'd either freak out or immediately check if one of my co-workers had been doodling on the negatives. But nope, that's an actual formation sitting there on Mars, looking like it's about to ask if you've accepted our Lord and Savior, Cthulhu. Now, NASA says lighting and shadows, but of course they're going to say that. If they came out and said, yeah, there's a giant alien face staring at us from Mars, Twitter, X would break up before the hour was over. Now, still, whether it's a coincidence or not, that's one heck of a coincidence. And for a lot of people, that was the moment they started looking at Mars differently. The day we found a face on Mars. In July 1976, NASA's Viking 1 orbiter was on a mission to map the Martian surface in unprecedented detail. It had already sent back hundreds of images, dusty plains, winding canyons, and crater-pocked highlands. But when it passed over an area called Cydonia, something remarkable appeared in frame. A hill, shaped unmistakably like a human face. It was massive, nearly 2 miles from end to end, with clear shadowed indentations where eyes would be, a ridge for a nose, and a mouth like lines stretching across the lower half. Even to seasoned scientists, it was an uncanny resemblance. NASA released the image to the public, along with an immediate explanation. It was a mesa, a natural landform. The facial features, an illusion, caused by the angle of the sun and long shadows across the terrain. But the public wasn't buying it. Newspapers ran the story with headlines about a face on Mars, and the photo quickly spread worldwide. In the decades before Photoshop, it was harder to dismiss a simple edit. To some, it looked like erosion had worn away an enormous sculpture, the last surviving relic of an ancient Martian civilization. A conspiracy theory sparked almost instantly. Why did the face seem so perfectly proportioned? Why did it sit in the middle of other geometric-looking formations? And if it was just shadows, why did it look like a deliberate design from multiple angles in subsequent images? To NASA, the answer was still simple. Pareidolia, our human tendency to see familiar shapes, especially faces, in random patterns. But to believers, the Viking 1 image was a cosmic whistleblower. They wondered, was NASA downplaying one of the most important discoveries in human history, or was the truth just too big to admit? Pareidolia. That's the official word for when your brain decides that random shapes are actually familiar objects, like when you see a cloud shaped like a rabbit, or a potato chip shaped like Elvis. NASA says that's all this is, just a Martian hill with a case of mistaken identity. But here's the thing. Usually pareidolia doesn't involve perfect symmetry, straight lines and proportions that would make an art student jealous. And this wasn't just some tiny rock. This thing is the size of a skyscraper lying on its back. Now, if it's a coincidence, it's the kind of coincidence that makes you start wondering if the universe has a sense of humor, or if it's trying to get our attention. Zooming out, the Cydonia region. When Viking 1 first spotted the face, it wasn't sitting alone in some empty desert. The image came from a region of Mars called Cydonia, a sprawling expanse between the planet's cratered highlands and smoother plains. Zooming out from the face itself, the surrounding terrain is strange. Among the rocky mesas and weathered ridges are several large pyramid-like shapes. Some are four-sided, others have 5 or even more facets, but many share a startling characteristic: symmetry. Their sides rise at matching angles, their bases are neatly proportioned, and some even appear to be paired together. Soon, amateur cartographers and researchers began mapping the region in detail. When they connected certain points, the face, the pyramids, and other nearby mounds, geometric patterns began to emerge. Lines formed triangles, pentagons, even a perfect right angle. It didn't look random, it looked planned. Some fringe researchers went even further, suggesting that the entire area might be a kind of city layout. They proposed that if an intelligent species wanted to leave a message for whoever found these structures, geometry, a universal language of math, would be the safest bet. No need for translations. NASA, of course, had a different take. They pointed out that Mars is littered with oddly shaped mountains and ridges, many of which can look symmetrical when viewed from orbit. And, given enough natural formations, some are bound to align in ways that look intentional, at least to human eyes eager for meaning. Still, the Cydonia region had already captured the public's imagination. Once you see the face in the middle of what looks like a planned arrangement of monumental structures, it's hard to unsee it. And that's when people began asking the bigger question. If this is a city, where did its builders go? Alright, so let me get this straight. We've got a giant face, and now we've got pyramids on Mars. I mean, if they also find a Starbucks in the middle, I'm done. Now, NASA says it's just a coincidence. Shapes happen. Which is true. You can find patterns anywhere if you look hard enough. But the problem is, humans are really good at finding patterns. We've been doing it for survival since caveman days. Clouds that look like bears. Wood grain that looks like your ex, whatever. But when the coincidence starts looking like a whole city layout, that's when you start wondering, maybe it's not our brains playing tricks. Maybe we're just reading a really, really old map. Mathematical mystery. If the Cydonia region really is an ancient Martian city, then its urban planning might be even stranger than it looks. In the late 70s and early 80s, researchers began analysing the positions of the face and nearby pyramids using precise measurements. They claimed to find exact angles, 60 degrees here, 90 degrees there, and distances between structures that matched ratios found in famous monuments on Earth. One popular claim was that certain Cydonia structures aligned perfectly with points on Mars's horizon where the sun would rise or set during key astronomical events. Just like ancient civilizations on Earth designed temples to align with solstices and equinoxes, to some this was the smoking gun, proof of an intelligent hand at work. Others noticed that when the angles and ratios were plotted, they produced mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio, numbers that appear in art, architecture, and even biology on our own planet. Was this just another coincidence, or was it the Martian equivalent of signing your name at the bottom of a masterpiece? Critics countered that this was cherry-picking at its finest. If you measure enough points, you'll eventually find some that match famous numbers or alignments. And with billions of rocks and hills on Mars, it's inevitable that a few will line up with something interesting purely by chance. Still, the allure of mathematical messages is hard to resist. Numbers are universal, a way to communicate across languages, cultures, and even species. If something or someone wanted to announce, "We were here," geometry might be the perfect calling card. And if you believe in that possibility, then Cydonia starts looking less like a patch of Martian desert and more like an ancient blueprint waiting to be decoded. So now we've got Mars sending us geometry homework. Great. Look, I get why NASA and skeptics roll their eyes. You can make almost anything line up if you measure it enough times. But here's the thing. If we found these exact same patterns and ratios carved into a mountainside here on Earth, we wouldn't hesitate to say, yep, ancient civilization. We've done it with the pyramids, Stonehenge, you name it. But because it's on Mars, suddenly it's just erosion? I'm not saying we should start beaming "Hey neighbour" messages to Cydonia, but maybe, just maybe, it's worth keeping the ruler handy. Early investigators and media frenzy. By the mid-1980s, the face on Mars had escaped the confines of dusty NASA image archives and exploded into the public consciousness. And the spark that lit the fire, a small group of determined researchers who refused to accept that this was just a trick of light. Among the most vocal was Richard C. Hoagland, a former NASA consultant turned independent investigator. Hoagland didn't just see a face, he saw a city. He argued that Cydonia structures weren't random. They were monuments built by an ancient, possibly Martian civilization. To him, the geometry and the alignments weren't coincidences. They were signatures of intelligent design. Mainstream scientists were quick to dismiss it, but the media wasn't. In the pre-internet world, television specials like Mysteries of the Unknown and Sightings beamed grainy close-ups of the face into millions of homes. And glossy magazines ran photo spreads. Bookstores filled with titles promising to reveal the truth about Cydonia. Hoagland and others tied the face into the growing ancient astronaut theory, the idea that advanced extraterrestrial beings had once visited the solar system, and perhaps influencing life on Earth. Cydonia, they suggested, could be the ruins of one of their outposts. The imagery was too irresistible. A colossal human-like visage staring silently across the Martian plains, surrounded by pyramid-shaped monuments. It tapped into something deep, a yearning to connect our own history to a larger cosmic story. And so, a single photograph transformed from an obscure satellite image into one of the most hotly debated space mysteries of the century. Whether you believed in it or not, the face on Mars had become iconic. And you've got to hand it to Hoagland. The guy could sell a mystery. In a time before Photoshop, people looked at those images and went, that's definitely a face. And today, with all of our deepfake technology, we trust images less than a politician's promise. But back then, different story. And the media, they loved it. A giant face on another planet, that is ratings gold. I mean, even if you don't believe in ancient aliens, you can't help but lean in. Worst case, it's a neat rock. Best case, we're not alone. And let's be honest, we all want the best case. NASA's counterattack. By the late 90s, NASA had new tools in its arsenal. The Mars Global Surveyor, MGS, launched in 1996, carried a camera far more advanced than Vikings, capable of capturing details down to a few meters across. Naturally, one of its targets was the now infamous face on Mars. When the first high-resolution images came back in 1998, they showed a lumpy mesa. The clear eyes and mouth seen in the Viking photo were gone, replaced by uneven ridges and shadows. NASA doubled down. See, just geology, lighting fooled you. For many, that was the end of the story, but not for everyone. Some claimed the new images were suspiciously timed to capture the face under the harshest sunlight, flattening its features. Others argued that image processing or even selective framing could subtly influence how the formation appeared. NASA, for its part, insisted the differences were purely the result of improved resolution and different lighting angles. And they weren't wrong. Light and shadow can dramatically change how we perceive shapes. But for believers, the high-res shots didn't close the book. They opened another chapter. Some even floated the idea that the face had eroded between 1976 and 1988, either through natural processes or, in more speculative circles, deliberate removal to hide the evidence. The result? Instead of settling the debate, the Mars Global Surveyor's images only deepened it. The skeptics felt vindicated. The believers smelled a cover-up. And the face on Mars? It became more than a photograph. It became a battleground over who gets to define the truth about what we see. Okay, so NASA comes in like the interplanetary party pooper. Relax everyone, it's just a rock. Which is fine, maybe it is, but you have to admit, if you were trying to kill public interest in something, that's exactly how you'd do it. And the lighting thing, totally legit, but also super convenient. If someone took your worst selfie ever and said, see, you're not attractive, you'd probably want to reshoot. Same deal here. The believers didn't stop believing, and the skeptics got their I told you so moment. Basically, Mars threw us a mystery, and NASA threw back a bucket of cold space water. Geological versus artificial debate. When you strip away the excitement and the headlines, the debate over the face on Mars comes down to one simple question. Is it a trick of nature, or the work of intelligent hands? Geologists argue that nature can produce surprisingly regular shapes, Wind erosion, landslides, and volcanic activity can carve cliffs and mesas into near-symmetrical forms over millions of years. They point to examples here on Earth: the Old Man of the Mountain in New Hampshire, or the Elephant Rock in Nevada. Natural formations that happen to look remarkably like living creatures. In this view, the face on Mars is just a mesa shaped by Martian weather, frozen in place for eons. But supporters of the artificial theory counter with probability. They argue that while one natural formation might vaguely resemble a face, the odds of a face appearing alongside pyramid-like structures, some with apparent geometric relationships to each other, is far smaller. This, they say, hints at design, not chance. There's also the matter of scale. The face is nearly 2 miles long. If artificial, that's a megastructure on a scale unmatched even by our greatest ancient works, which raises an even bigger question. Who or what could build something like that on Mars? The tension between these two perspectives creates a strange stalemate. Science says, show us undeniable proof of construction or its geology. Believers say, the proof is right there, staring at you literally. And somewhere between those two positions lies the mystery's enduring power. Because sometimes the line between what nature can create and what intelligence can design is razor thin. So, on one side, we've got the scientists going, guys, nature does weird stuff all the time. And on the other side, believers saying, sure, but nature usually doesn't build perfect pyramids next to a giant alien emoji. Now, honestly, I get both points. Nature is a master sculpture, but the placement of all these shapes together, that's the bit that makes your eyebrow go up. Now, if it's just erosion, then Mars must have some very artistic wind patterns. Somewhere out there, a Martian breeze has a degree in fine arts. Why this image won't die? Decades have passed since Viking 1 captured the face on Mars, and yet it refuses to fade into obscurity. Part of that is the image itself, raw, haunting, and simple. A face, silent and unblinking, staring across a barren world. It speaks to something primal in us. Throughout human history, we've built monuments to endure. The Sphinx, Easter Island's Maui statues, the pyramids of Giza. Each is a declaration to the future. We were here. If the Cydonia formations were made by intelligent beings, they'd be the ultimate cosmic calling card, visible not just from the ground, but from orbit. Then there's the cultural gravity. Every time new Mars missions are announced, the face resurfaces online. It's in documentaries, conspiracy forums, sci-fi novels, even video games. It's become more than just a photograph. It's a symbol for the possibility that we're not alone. And that's why it won't die. Even if every scientist on Earth signed a statement tomorrow saying this is 100% natural, a part of us would still wonder, what if they're wrong? What if the face isn't just a fluke of geology, but a fragment of an ancient story waiting to be told? Because here's the truth. Sometimes mysteries endure, not because of what they are, but because of what they could be. And the face on Mars? It's one of the few that still has us looking skyward decades later, asking what if. And this thing is like the celebrity that just won't leave the headlines. Every few years, it pops back up, like, hey, remember me? Giant face on Mars? And we're all like, yeah, and we still haven't figured you out. Now, it's not just the mystery though, it's the story. Humans love a monument, especially one that feels like a message. Even if it's natural, the fact that it looks the way it does is enough to keep the dream alive. And basically, until someone lands on Cydonia with a pickaxe and a selfie stick, the debate isn't going anywhere. Closing thoughts. In the end, the face on Mars isn't just a story about a single image. It's about how we, as a species, respond to the unknown. We are pattern seekers by nature. Our brains are hardwired to find meaning in shapes, from faces in clouds to animals in constellations. Most of the time, it's harmless imagination. But every so often, something comes along that challenges the boundary between coincidence and intent. If the Cydonia formations are natural, then they are a beautiful reminder of the alien artistry of geology. But if, even in the smallest way, they are remnants of something artificial, then it means our solar system holds a chapter of history we never knew existed. A chapter written not by us, but by another intelligent hand. And that possibility is why this mystery endures. and not because we're certain of the answer, but because of the questions it still leaves behind. Could erosion and time have erased the true nature of these structures? Could Mars have once been home to builders, storytellers, and engineers who left their mark for future eyes to find? And if so, what happened to them? One day, human footsteps might crunch across the sands of Cydonia, and we'll have our answer. Until then, the face will keep staring upward, and we'll keep staring back, wondering if it's trying to tell us something. You know, maybe that's the real reason the face on Mars sticks with us. It's less about what it is and more about what it could mean. And sure, maybe one day we'll send a rover or a crew to check it out and they'll find just a big rock. But what if they find something else? Either way, it's kind of nice to think there might be cosmic neighbors out there who left us a selfie the size of a mountain. Mars, the universe's oldest social media post. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Now let me know in the comments below of videos you would like to see next. Okay, my friends, until next time, stay curious.